On today's show, we give an update on the football transfer portal, and then we'll take a closer look at Toledo's top two quarterbacks, DeQuan Finn and Tucker Gleason. All right. Segment one of the Toledo Rockets podcast is about the transfer portal for football. Toledo has two players, or should I say, two former players in the portal. First of all, is offensive lineman Lavelle Demont. We had talked about him before in a couple of episodes previously. And then also is tight end Zach Person. Person is a 6'5", 220-pound tight end from Kingford, Michigan. He played in just one game this year against UMass. So both Person and Dumont entered the portal on the first day. That was last Monday, December 5th. The only two players from the Rockets that are in the portal the end of the season here, the end of the regular season, MAC championship season, I should say. There's still a bowl game to be played. You know, that's not common to only have a couple players in the transfer portal. The transfer portal is really getting out of hand at this point. It's like NFL free agency, but on steroids, to be honest. I thought this was interesting. North Carolina head coach Mac Brown, just I think it was the day of or the day after the portal opened, he had this to say. One of the real issues we've got in college football, I feel, is people that are tampering with guys on your team and paying them money to leave. And it's an issue that needs to get stopped. Then he went on to say this. I sat down to lunch with one of our starters the other day and I said, "Are you getting calls?" He said, "Oh, coach, I've got 15 places I could go." And he said, "I'm not going anywhere." And I said, "Are they offering you money?" He said, "Yes, 100%. You know, this has to be one of the biggest fears for Toledo Rocket fans and the coaching staff. Um, if there are teams out there, and let me kind of clarify probably what he meant by they're offering you money. They're offering you NLI agreements, right, which is legal now within the NCAA. So NIL agreements that they get money from those endorsements. And that's got to be kind of scary for the coaching staff at Toledo because they've got a really good player. You know, you're not supposed to be able to reach out if another team's coaches to a player that's on another team and try and get them to transfer to your school. But that's kind of what's happening. And if they've got a good player that someone else likes, they might be offering him opportunities through the NIL for money, like Mac Brown is saying here. I thought it was very good of Mac to come out and talk about this. And I think it needs to be talked about more by the various coaches, and something really needs to be done to try and get this under control. Right. I mean, it's crazy. First of all, you're not supposed to be able to contact players that are on other teams and try and, ask them to if they're interested in transferring to your school and so forth. And then with the whole NIL agreement that's in place now, that you can have NLI, it's just too many players have the opportunity and too many teams and coaches have the opportunity to kind of go a bit beyond what you're supposed to do with the system and bring in players. And this is going to help those bigger schools kind of like NFL free agency. So I brought that up, right? Let's look at that. When you've got really, really great NFL players that earn free agency and they want lots of money, the big market teams are typically the teams that can offer lots of money to those players, right? And the smaller market are they're not going to be able to offer as much money. They just don't have as much money, right? So they're trying to put their team together with solid players, but not necessarily a bunch of stars like certain teams can do. And it's becoming the same thing in college football, right? You've got your Power Five conferences and your top teams in the Power Five, and they're going to be able to do more of this free agency recruiting, whatever, um, by offering more money through NIL opportunities that are available. And some of the smaller schools, like a group of five school like Toledo, won't have as much NLI opportunity for that player. So they can't quite, that it's not really the school giving the NLI money, but it's the opportunities that are available based on that school, right? So it's really a disadvantage for the smaller group of five schools. And this is something that, Toledo has some really good players on this team that um, they have to hope that they're just going to stay loyal to Toledo and realize that they can be drafted and seen by NFL scouts playing in Toledo, playing even Division two or something. They can. So that's what they have to hope that they can market to the players themselves. But I find it interesting that Mac Brown at North Carolina, which is a Power Five school, um, he's in that situation now where he's talking to his players about it and trying to find out, um, who's being recruited by other schools and so forth. And I didn't get the actual quote, but he did go on to talk a little bit about how he's talking to the players about, please let me know when you're hearing from other schools right away and stuff. Cause again, they're not supposed to be hearing from them. So it's tampering really, with a student athlete. So it's gonna be interesting to see how that goes. So also within the portal, when we talked about it before, we talked a little bit about offensive line for Toledo and how I felt that the Rockets needed to bring in a couple of offensive linemen through the portal. And just to kind of touch base on that again, I still completely in that thinking that if they can bring in, let's say, two solid offensive linemen that are proven in college and can provide, quality minutes, I'm going to say even be starters on the offensive line in the coming fall 2023, that would be huge for improving the quality of play on the offensive line going into next year, which I think is going to be a huge key if the Rockets want to repeat as MAC champions. Can't really say at this point, who's really being targeted there. I'm sure that they are looking at offensive linemen. They've been doing that for a while, not just junior college or high school players, but also looking at the portal. They brought in different players through the portal last year in different positions, and I'm sure they're going to do that again this year. But I really feel like offensive line is the big key there that they really need to target in the portal. All right. So let me know what you think about that. And let me know in the comments what you think. If you think that there's anybody in particular that would be a really good get in the portal that wouldn't be so much of a dream that's not going to happen, but somebody that's realistically has a shot coming to Toledo, let me know and we can talk about that further. Also, if you enjoy the podcast, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button below and like the show today and help us continue to grow. All right, so that'll take us to segment 2. And in segment 2 of the show today, I'm going to break down both of the quarterbacks that have played Coleman this year for the Rockets, and that being Daquan Finn and Tucker Gleason. And first of all, I'm going to take a look at Daquan Finn. He's listed as a sophomore this year, 6'2", 210 pounds from Detroit, Michigan. So this was actually considered his 4th season with Toledo, but he's considered a redshirt sophomore due to 2020 was the quote COVID year. Players were allowed to get an extra year of eligibility from that year. So that year basically didn't count towards their eligibility. And, it was only 6-game season, right? Toledo went 4-2, missed out on, playing for a MAC title or anything like that. But so he's had 4 years, but he's considered a redshirt sophomore this year, so he'll be a junior next year. Tucker Gleason, considered a redshirt freshman this year. This is actually his 3rd season into college. So Gleason's 6'3", 230 pounds, out of Tampa, Florida. Again, because of the COVID year, he's considered a redshirt freshman this year. But going back to 2020, he did play 2 games for Georgia Tech. And that was the COVID year. Then, doesn't count towards the eligibility. And then he transferred to UT. And last year in 2021, he did play a little bit, but was considered a redshirt because you can play up to 4 games in redshirt. So that's why he is a redshirt freshman this year. Okay, so just looking a little bit at their stats from this year, they're pretty good all around, really. Finn has a 137 passer rating, completing 59%, a little over 59% of his passes. So you ideally like to see a higher completion percentage, but the passer rating's not bad. Throw for 2,127 yards, 22 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. And then he's also second on the team with 608 rushing yards, which comes out to 5.4 yards per carry, and he has 8 rushing touchdowns. So altogether, he's accounted for 30 touchdowns and then the 12 interceptions. Tucker Gleason has a 124 passer rating, and he's completed about 47.5% of his passes. So again, a little low in the completion percentage, lower than Finn's even. So you'd like to see that at least up around 60% or so. 834 passing yards for 8 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. And he hasn't played as much as Finn, but he did have 185 yards rushing, 4.4 yards per carry, and 3 rushing touchdowns. So he has 11 total touchdowns, 3 INTs. So his stats, pretty decent too. He hasn't played as much this season as Finn. So that's part of the reason why his yardage is a little bit lower and so forth. Finn is really looked at as a dual threat quarterback that can really hurt you with his feet. And, he throws the deep ball pretty well, I think. He has a strong arm, could be a little more accurate, but overall, he's got a strong arm, and his decision-making is pretty good, but sometimes he throws into tighter coverage than he should, that kind of thing. So I think sometimes too, he's gotten to a point that he's looking to pass as much as he can. And some of the time, I think he would do better if he actually scrambled a little more, just because he does have that real threat to running, and it helps to keep the defense more off guard. Now, Gleason, not known as much for being a running quarterback, but he has done well running the football. He's not as fast as Finn is, but he's mobile enough, 4.4 yards per carry, 185 yards rushing, 3 touchdowns. So he can definitely do what he needs to there. But he's considered more of your pocket passer, throws the ball pretty well. He has been inaccurate, but he's also just a redshirt freshman, has not played as much as Finn. So that's going to happen. And some of his decision-making has been similar, I think, to Finn, where he's thrown the ball sometime when maybe he shouldn't have, or into tighter coverage and so forth. But overall, he's, he throws a nice ball, throws the ball hard, and can be pretty accurate. I think the biggest thing is that Finn has a little bit more experience at the collegiate level than Gleason does, and that's helped him to pass the ball a little bit better. But I think that Gleason has a little bit better potential as a passer. But then you look at the other side, I think Finn does make the defense worry a little more because they have to worry about his feet a lot more than they do with Gleason, even though Gleason has shown that he can run the ball pretty well himself. So, we go into 2023. It's going to be interesting. Finn's definitely been considered the starter this year, but I think that Gleason has shown when he's come in, when Finn's been hurt or Finn wasn't playing well, Gleason has shown that he can do the job as well. And I think that we're going to really see a two quarterback battle in the spring and summer, leading into August before we really know for sure who's going to be the quarterback. And, it's funny I say that because just won the MAC championship and Finn has been a dynamic player at quarterback, but Gleason is a good quarterback. And I think that he deserves a shot too. And it's just going to make your team better if you're constantly competing every day. And it's going to make both of them better if they're competing against each other every day. So I think that's what we're going to see. And I think we're going to be in a good situation going into next year that either one of them can play and we can still be good. So that'll help in case there's an injury or something, or one's not playing well, that type of thing. The interesting thing, though, about that is when you get to the season, a lot of times having a two quarterback system doesn't work very well. So it probably wouldn't be good to have a two quarterback system in that once we get to the first game, the first game is going to be against Illinois next year. You want to have a starter in place, right? And that's the guy that's considered your quarterback and not necessarily platooning them. But that said, there should be a big battle, I think, between these two in the offseason. They both have some really good qualities about them. And I think that either one of them can be successful and make the team good. Either one of them should be able to lead us to try and defend our MAC title for next year and potentially be successful at doing that. So I don't think that you have to have one over the other per se, and still be able to win the MAC title, right? I think either one of them can do that. We're at the position that we were winning the MAC championship because Gleason was able to come in when Finn was hurt, and Gleason was able to play very well and get us some wins. So, again, it kind of goes back a little bit to the offensive line. They've both had to run a lot, scramble when they went back to pass. This year, the offensive line did not do a good job, in my opinion, on passing plays, right? Pass blocking. And the better that the offensive line gets going into next year, the better that's going to make both of these players and make the offense. So that's going to be a key, I think, for having the shot to repeat at the MAC title, no matter which quarterback it is, Finn or Gleason, that's the starter. And I think it's a good thing for Toledo to have two solid quarterbacks like that, you have to have a battle in the offseason to see who's going to be the starting quarterback, just because they're both great quality quarterbacks. So let me know what you think in the comments. And, this is the end of the episode for today. We have some great shows lined up here in the coming days. So stay tuned and thanks for watching.